renew, reconnect, live, laugh, and love, connections, dream, getaway experiences. Brave Heart Workshops, unique getaways live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show, renew, restore, and reconnect in community, sponsored by Brave Heart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And today I have a great guest with me, Brenda Trott, and she's joining us. And Brenda, where are you from? Where are you coming?
I'm in Houston, Texas.
Houston,
hot, humid Houston.
Houston, Texas. So I love my Texas girls. I've been meeting lots of girls from Texas. I love them. So what I'd love the audience to know is a little bit about Brenda. So I'm going to read her bio to you to introduce her to you. She grew up with this entrepreneurial spirit and geeked out over marketing, even in her youngest years. In her core, she believed that small businesses, not corporations, are the lifeblood of a thriving economy. It was not until she had a major illness and was forced to leave a job that she realized she had the skills to help small businesses not only survive, but thrive. Brenda's a marketing professional, an author, and a speaker. She's known as the Make Money is Your Sleep Girl and helps small business owners increase their income through manifestation and marketing. The author of several how-to media marketing books and nominated the best social media strategist in Houston. She's often called upon by ABC Radio and other media venues to chime in on the ever-changing online world. She offers classes and consulting for do-it-yourself marketers and those who are ready for less ebb and more flow in their business income. And so that is phenomenal. And she's also just started recently a different website called pajamapartyprofits.com. So Brenda, I would love to hear about those younger years of this little girl and what it was like that led you into this field of being a professional marketer.
Wow. Well, I wish it was an easy connection because it would be so fun to go right from your childhood dream into what you're doing in reality. I can tell you my earliest memory of marketing. I was literally 4 years old. And I remember, back then we were able to play outside and we didn't always have adult supervision. But I would yell from my yard, tickets for sale, come see the show. And was completely surprised when a mom walked by with her probably 2 or 3 year old daughter and said, go see the show, and gave me money for the tickets. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I don't even have a show. And I felt pretty horrible because I felt that feeling that we get as entrepreneurs. Sometimes we feel like, what do we call that, imposter syndrome? That was probably my very first time experiencing that. And I had to go back and clear that so that when I did realize I do have the skills, I didn't feel that way anymore. So it was something that took me from childhood to adult.
Well, that's a funny intro because I have a similar story, only mine is really crazy. What happened is I too loved selling tickets for shows, me and my sister. And we loved like doing these little like musicals, like nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina in the morning, and we dance with our little umbrellas and sell tickets. Well, Brenda, it was so funny when I was little, my grandma took us to the movie theater to see the motion picture Gypsy, Rose Lee. And it was with Judy Garland, and she was a stripper. And she takes us to this in the show, and I just loved her performance. I go to this movie and I'm intrigued. So I come back and I start to sell tickets, and I'm in my garage and singing the song, "Let Me Entertain You," and I'm doing this, and my mom comes out and says, "What are you doing?" And I says, "I'm being gypsy." Oh, the innocence of children.
Go there. I'm sorry.
Isn't that funny? So I can see us as entrepreneurs starting our show business. Anyway, Brenda, so as this little girl is experiencing the thrill of doing this, tell me a little bit about what happened then on this journey. You said you had an illness. So was this as a child, or what developed then for you?
No, you'd have to go years forward for that. I did fulfill another one, which I have a pure love of teaching. And so I was a school teacher for years. And we have this anomaly in the United States where school teachers often have what's called a nervous breakdown. And I got to a point where I had developed agoraphobia. I couldn't even leave my house for it. It's really strange. If you know anything about MS, you could attempt to pick up a cup when you have multiple sclerosis, but your body does not respond. And that is how I could help you explain agoraphobia. My head knew that I would be fine, but my body refused to cooperate. And so I was forced to figure out how I was going to keep the lights on from my bedroom. And I was a single mom of 4 children, and I needed to keep mouths fed, the lights on, and a roof over our head. And it was a struggle, but I was able to follow along in other steps. Began writing my very first books and publishing on Amazon, selling the books I did have. Amazon and I, boy, they kept me alive. Then progressively always moving towards getting better, I found myself going to networking events. One particular networking event, thank goodness, it was just one, because every week I showed up with a different a different hat on. They didn't know what it was. I was throwing spaghetti on the wall for everything. I would be a teeth whitener. I was an insurance salesperson. I was a ghostwriter. I was all these different things. And but that's not what got me business. Every time I would go and I would present, I had this great 3-minute or 30-second speech. But what got me my first $100 check was when I was actually marketing my insurance business online, and I would get phone calls and I would be excited, say, "Oh man, I got a great phone, I got a phone call here, and I got I put this up here, and I got these guys are calling me, I don't have to call them." And I was excited about that. And it was what I was excited about that got me my first money. I didn't even have to ask them. They just said, "Well, if I gave you $100, would you do that for me?" And $100 to me was like, wow, that's groceries for the week, right? So yes. And then I continued, and then the memories coming back of actually a pastor in my church from the pulpit said, "Hey, if you guys ever want to talk marketing, you need to talk to Brenda over there, because she's got a marketing mind." And I was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be talking about God up there. But all these things kind of came to fruition. And I was telling you before we started that even now, I'm always trying to slip away from that marketing realm, right? Everybody knows how to market, and I just kind of want to teach people marketing. But every time I try to slip away from that, I'm getting told, no, come back, because this is where you can really help people. So instead of pulling away completely, I've just kind of brought in more to how I help small business owners. And so not only, remember that story I told you about, that imposter syndrome and being very small, there are other similar stories that I realized actually did not do me good things, did not do me justice, did not help propel me forward when I wanted to be my own business owner. Instead, they're what we call blocks. And so they created these things in the back of my brain, my subconscious, that were like, no, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. And so I help the people that I work also figure out what it is that's causing these things to happen. One example, it will many examples. I'm sure you know the business owner who gets to the top, right? They have worked their business. They maybe even have gotten to the point where they've hired employees, and then something happens and boom, it all goes away. Like they get up and then they have to float back down. They get up, they have to float back down. And that's where I was, and that's how I can help people find those patterns where it's horrible to say, but oftentimes it's because there's a pattern in their life. Something is forcing them to make those decisions that causes those issues to happen. And so I help stop that so they can actually have the business that they want, work the business that they want, make the difference that they want without having to go through those and those.
I'm so glad we met, because I'm really passionate about a thing, and you and I can talk offline when we're done here, but a thing called legacy burdens, Brenda. And what a legacy burden is, the Bible talks about it as 4 generations of sin, but professional therapy that are trained in it call it legacy burden. It's where these burdens are passed on generationally with us. And when you can get to the core of those exiled parts that are the burden, and you're able to work them through. And I love a thing that's called connecting the dots. So that's why when I started my interview, I said, can you take us back? So I love connecting the dots, because by connecting dots backwards, we're able to see the patterns of what goes on in our lives. And so when you can work things backwards and to try to find the legacy burdens, it's amazing how the transitions and the shifts in your life go. So for example, I was in a room with a drama therapist who's one of my favorite, and that's how Braveheart Workshop started. And she was doing legacy burden work with a married couple. And the one legacy burden of the husband was at 12 years old, he was told by his father, they were downstairs in the workshop doing some woodworking, and the child was building something, and the father pulled the hammer away from him and said, "Give me that hammer. You're not doing it right. You'll never do anything right. You'll never amount to anything." So thus, that burden was brought into fruition. And so that was passed on. And then when he had a daughter, an event in her life happened. And that burden, without it being said, was starting to manifest in the daughter. And so in order for it to break, the drama therapist took them on this journey of changing that dialogue that took place at 12. And so it all shifted for the manifestation to change. So I see that similarity in what you're doing, because that up and down has to do with those legacy burdens.
Absolutely. That's actually a new term for me, legacy burden, but there's all sorts of ways that you can talk about, and it is generational. They've gone back and talked about, and scientists have shown that mice 4 generations later can be afraid of something that they trained the parent to be afraid of. And so it wasn't trained by the parent to the mouse. This was ingrained in their DNA. Mm-hmm. And so absolutely that can be. When you talk about rewriting or reprogramming, I forget the term that you used for legacy. What was the term that you used for changing it? I
probably said rewiring it, rechanging it, but actually I think even the better terminology is unburdening it. You unburden that.
That's an easier term. Yes, definitely, because wherever there's a problem, there's a solution at the same time. Absolutely.
Yes.
And in my story, the whole reason I think that I wanted to, well, I didn't know if it was a pivot or if it was an addition of my services, but it goes back to when I was 4 years old. My poor dad, right? 4 years old was the very first time. I say 4 because I was in kindergarten. So I absolutely know I was 4 years old. I was in kindergarten, and it was, and actually maybe I was 5, barely 5. So I was in kindergarten. I was given money to go to the PTA sale and buy something for myself for Easter. And I had never had the experience of going anywhere with anyone that wasn't an adult before. And I was brought down with my class, and I made this purchase. And I remember falling in love with a bunny that was about the size of my hand. My grown-up hand. So it was small, and it was a little blue bunny inside this giant yellow basket with cellophane all over it. And it was I just, my heart was just like, oh, this beautiful bunny. And when I got home, I brought this basket home, and my dad was in the living room, which was unusual because he usually wasn't home around that time, but he's in the living room and he had this look on his face. My dad is one, when he can lower his eyebrow on one eye and up on the other, I would just like melt into this breakdown and cry. So I disappointed him. Well, he just about had that look on his face, and he had this lady sitting there. It was a neighbor, and apparently there was a mix-up when I had gotten money to buy something in the PTA, and I had received some of her money. So he said, well, what did you buy at the sale? And I presented this basket. They're so proud of this cute little bunny inside, and I hadn't even opened it yet. And he said, that's what you bought? And I said, yes. He gave it to this lady. So he was like ripped my heart out and gave this basket. Now think of all the implications. Before we're 7, we are creating all these experiences. So that created, I'm not good with money. It created, when I find something that I'm in love with, it leaves me. Mm-hmm. Like all of this goes right into where I'm at. Well, about 2 years ago, I found myself in the worst position of my entire life. I had finally kind of come off of couch surfing and a breakup, and I was driving my car, which was paid for, and I know the power of gratitude, right? And I'm driving my car, driving for Uber because I had no clients, or it was Lyft, but so I'm driving and I go, oh, what a gorgeous day! I have a full tank of gas. This is going to be a great day, and then all of a sudden, all the lights on my car light up, including the triangle of death. And I was at my lowest low. One of the first things that helped me out of that was to remember the story of my little blue bunny. And I wrote it all out, and I poured out all of my emotions about, how that felt and what it's done for me now and everything. And I burned that sucker. Just took it outside and I burned it. And then I just rewrote a very, very simple paragraph, and I said, I bought this bunny, and I took it home, and we slept together every night, and we grew up together. I literally said we grew up together. And I wish I'd thought of telling this story now, because 3 weeks after I rewrote that story, my dad, who's now 75 years old, sent me a giant blue bunny. We grew up together. And that was, like I said, about 2 years ago. Since that time, I had paid off over $20,000 in debt. I was scared the creditors were going to take money out of my checking account. I didn't have a checking account. I paid that off, and I traveled with my boyfriend to Egypt and Israel and Greece, all paid for. And that was all within 9 months' time. Wow. So there is real power in discovering what it was in our youth or in our generation, because we see things over, but there's real power in finding that and actually rewriting it.
That's an amazing. Now, did you ever ask your dad ever, after he sent it, that if he remembered that story, or if he even identified the two, because he was older? Did he ever say anything to you? Or did
he absolutely knew nothing about what I was talking about. He said, I have no idea.
So it was totally God inspired, not dad inspired at all. Totally God inspired. Wow, that's a great story. That's a great story. So now you're moving to the present of there's 2 years past, and so where are you at today in the business world? Because you've authored some stuff. So talk about you. At what point did you author the book, and then where are you at with your career path now?
I authored books back, like I said, when I over 10 years ago. I'm trying to think, the last book that I wrote was probably a children's book, and that was probably over 5 years ago. I do have some written and not yet published. That might happen coming up, and that's more the children's book that I have coming out is about a birthday party, and it's the same story twice, except that in one story, the child goes home or goes to bed that night thinking it was the worst birthday he'd ever had in his entire life. And at the end of the second story, he goes to bed thinking that was the best day of his entire life. Wow. And when I read, as a classroom teacher, I read that to children, and actually started out just storytelling it to the children. And they were the one who told me, wow, it's all about, how you look at things, and, you do have a choice to be happy, and you can. So, real proud of that one, that story that's gone out and hasn't even been published yet. And then another one is, again, going to be, why not, the next one that I do, it'll be a longer version, is why not me. So why, you go from why me, the story of the oh, now I can't remember the subtitle. I should have written these down. The story of going from victimhood to victorious.
That's amazing. I love those. And when the pandemic hit, I'll have to direct you to that Facebook page. There's a Facebook page about stay safe, and there's all different leaders that go onto that page daily, and they'll do activities with moms and children. And I haven't done it in a couple of months now, but when the pandemic first hit, I started, and I did story time with Grandma Jill, and I would pick up a story and read it out loud and say, it's story time with Grandma Jill, so mommy can take a break. And I'd read a story, and then at the end, encourage the children, now make sure you go and brush your teeth, and give mom a good hug, and get tucked into bed, and make sure that you sleep really well and get rested today. And so I would just do these little story times. So I'll have to connect you. You might enjoy it to do story time with Brenda.
Maybe.
With your books.
Well, I did teach writing in the school district as well. So I really believe that there is magic in writing, and it can be healing, and it can really, I don't want to offend the Christian, but it can conjure up, new wonderful realities. I don't know a better word for that other than, it's really that part of that ask and be willing to receive.
Yeah.
And so when you can rewrite your story, explain to your subconscious, no, it's okay, and then just allow, just allowing. There's scripture that explains that too, and it says, just be still and know that I am Lord. So we don't have to especially the entrepreneur. We tend to be the type A, and we're always looking for that next thing. What do I have to do? What do I have to do? What do I have to do? And it's not until, the most profitable days I've ever had are ones that I went on vacation.
Yep.
When I take off, and that's when you get the emails with the checks or the PayPal things. It's when you just stop and just let it come in.
Yep.
So I don't.
Well, I totally agree with you. I was a single mom for 17 years, Brenda, and so those 17 years as an outside sales rep and living off of a small salary but commission based, I just completely surrendered my income to God at a really early stage, raising my son. And I can't tell you how many times that monthly paycheck was to the penny of what my bills were, exactly to the penny. And it was me just surrendering and saying, you know what, my customers belong to you, God, they don't belong to me. And if I'm supposed to have this client, and if they're supposed to buy from me, it's in your hands. It's completely out of mine. All I knew is I had to show up every day. Half the battle in life is showing up. And so if we just get out of bed in the morning and show up for life and surrender, many times things will manifest in our lives. It's when we're fighting that first step of getting out of bed and starting the day off. And I'm a stickler for that. When my son graduated from college and he asked if he could come back home, I was really strict, and I said, well, first off, you're a man now, so you're not coming back home. When you left for college, that became your home, so you can come and stay with me, and I'll let you stay with me for 90 days. And in 90 days, this is what you'll need to do. So I told him, you have to get out of bed, be downstairs in your suit by 8 o'clock in the morning on your computer. And in 5 days, he had a job. And within 90 days, I taught him how to put a budget together. And he went off on his own. And I taught him to put everything on one credit card and pay it off every month. So by the time he was in his mid-20s, his credit score was 850. And now he's a financial advisor managing millions of dollars of portfolios for people around the globe. So whatever it did, it worked. It worked.
Bravo. Bravo.
Yeah.
You said something well, first you asked me about what am I doing now, and I don't want to forget to mention that I still give marketing advice and manifestation advice on my YouTube channel. And you'd ask me, I'm still under 1,000 on my YouTube channel. I've had my channel for 10 years, and I used to just use it as a placeholder. And only now am I really beginning to put information out there, because I realized that many of my clients do watch YouTube more so than they even go onto Facebook. But you were talking about showing up. And that was, as a teacher, I remember hosting a conference with a child and his dad, because he was struggling, and he may have needed to be retained the next year. And I was just kind of showing the work and explaining, where the difficulties were. And I know this dad that meant so well to his son, looked down and gave him almost that eyebrow look that my dad does. And he said, "Son, you got to work harder. You got to work harder." And this little boy is just, yeah. And you could see him like kind of tensing up. And I was just thinking in my head, like, what does that even mean? Working harder. And I just gently, addressed myself to the child. And I said, "Look, I don't want to disrespect your father any, but I want to explain something to you. When I went to the gym every day, when I first started going to the gym, because remember, I had agoraphobia. I was in my house forever. It weekends everything. And to even go to the gym, I had to go at night because I was afraid of people, and it was just insane. But the very first time I ever sat on a gym equipment, I couldn't move it. I was like, and it had zero weight on it. And I was just like, I was so weak. And I explained to this child, but I went and I kept going. I went 3 days a week. And every time I went, I was just a little bit stronger. And all I had to do was show up. And I said, and this was, pre-pandemic, I said, I just went yesterday and I overheard a woman say, watch out for that weight. You don't want to hurt yourself. Because I had just left it and there was, a ton of weight on there. So I had made this progress. And again, like you said, you just have to show up. Yeah. Will you make mistakes? Probably. But it's better than not making mistakes, because you have zero progress then. So, and that child, by the way, he rocked it. He passed my class with a B.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because like I said, how much my son progressed himself as a child. I remember, Brenda, you being a teacher, him being in first grade, and the teacher coming to me and saying, "You got to spend more time with him reading. He's just not able to read. He's not able to read." And I'm like, he's so smart. I read to him all the time. What are you saying? And so it turned out, and I was frustrated with the teacher, it turned out that I heard about this eye doctor in Chicago that did this special eye test. And so I went to him, and he said, "Oh, he has a horrible muscle imbalance, so he needs eye therapy." So I took him 3 times a week for eye therapy, and then hired someone to work with him throughout the week. And I'd say within 2 to 3 months, he was reading faster than anyone in the class. And it wasn't nothing about him not taking time to read. He had a muscle imbalance, and his lines were crossing over, and he couldn't see the words. And so as soon as we got that corrected, he succeeded. So it's amazing how those words that someone could say to you, like he's not picking up. You're like, and a parent who's not intuitive is going to take that to heart and think something's wrong with their child, or that they have to, like you say, work harder. I got to work harder and spend more time with my kid, when it was a simple eye imbalance that needed to be corrected.
Yes, it should be easy. So what was the block?
Yep.
His muscles were the block.
Yep.
There's a block.
Yeah. So if we spend time with people slowing things down instead of speeding things up, many times we can catch the connection of the dots. So I love that term. Connecting the dots generally show you what is really going on. Instead of speeding things up and thinking you have the answer, if you slow it down, you may find a much more gracious solution with the universe and the world. So with that, Brenda, where are you at today? So share with us, what are you doing as of today? Because I know when we started, you said, I have some ideas of restructuring right now. So what does that look like for you?
Well, I still help people with marketing. I just can't get away from it. If you check out my YouTube channel, I'm always putting marketing tips on there. I help them. But I don't do the marketing for you anymore, but I can do it real close. So I do offer office hours where I will consult with multiple people at a time and explain, the next step. And oftentimes when you have more than one people on a call, it's wonderful because you don't know that you have that question until you hear someone ask it. But I've also brought on, I've also, since my success in releasing some of these horrible things and being able to not only go from Jill where you were when you said you were making it, to the exact penny of what you needed to pay your bills, but now we can break that ceiling and move forward. And so I work with people with different techniques and manifestation and EFT through. I'm working on certification as a tapping into wealth coach. So I will work with people one on one and just getting to the bottom of what is it? What is that old story that you don't even realize you have? What is that pattern that you got in your business, in your life, in your romance? I hope in romance too, and finding out what it is. And I should know. I've been married 3 times, so I've been
Hey, you
able
know
to
what? We don't
figure.
have to always have it right, right? You've been given
Well, I
another
did it.
chance.
That's what I'm saying. All of these stories, it turns out, Susie Orman will tell you that your weight is a direct result of your debt. And I can tell you that your money can also be a reflective of your romance. Like a lot of these things, they all kind of pair together because it has to do with that programming and what your mind is telling you is safe. And it's not even telling you, it's just doing it for you, right? It's on autopilot. It's like, oh no, we're going to go this way. So like you kind of alluded to it too, we have these intuition, and oftentimes we let that front part of our brain guide us when really the heart should be guiding us, because the back part of the brain is like, let's keep safe, let's stay in our house with agoraphobia forever. The front part of the brain is like, let's go down this road, but listen to the back part of the brain. But the heart's telling you, I wonder if there's something at a coffee shop. And you know what, that's exactly what happened when I wrote that story. Like part of that 9-month process, I took that path of least resistance. I went to the coffee shop to do my work, which I hated doing. It's loud. I never get a seat. And at that coffee shop, this lady nearly ran me down. Like, I'm still not always I'm a very much personal space kind of person. And I'm sitting with my back to the wall, and this lady comes, almost knocks me over because she liked the wallpaper behind me. Like, what on earth? So I struck up a conversation with her. She told me she was going to go teach, and she wanted to bring this wallpaper with her in Japan or China. And it started a process where that path of least resistance, I went back into teaching for a while and help, clean all of this stuff up. But I would never have done that if I didn't go to the coffee shop. And that's because this inner pull said, hey, get out of the house, go down there. And I listened. Mm-hmm. And so when you get to a point where you can't do it when your cup's already filled with oil. You need to dump some of that oil out first in order to get the water to come back in. I don't know if that analogy helps at all, but when you've got that icky, sticky oil of that rabbit that was pulled away from you, if you can get rid of that, then you can fill it back up with the fresh water that's going to help you. And when you do that, then you're ready to listen to that intuition or the God's voice or the universe or however you're going to address it. And you can really have a new path in life, and you can enjoy it now rather than when I get a job or when my son comes home, or
exactly.
Enjoy it now and let stuff will come to you.
So with the pandemic, that just seems like it never ends until the election. That's my thought. It will end when the election's over. No. Anyway, with the pandemic, how have you been dealing with connection? How has connection looked like for you during this time?
Jill, I probably feel a little guilty because I believe that we create our situations. And so I think I join 100,000 or more introverts in the States who are like loving this. I get to connect with people more now on my terms than I ever did before. I don't have to drive an hour to a networking event. I can attend one right online.
Mhm.
I can get myself onto YouTube where somebody might watch it at 2 o'clock in the morning and not have to buy a ticket to come see me. So when it comes to current events, I know I'm not the only one. We're kind of loving this. I've always bought my groceries online or to
Yep.
pick up.
Yep.
I'm just one of those people who I truly appreciate other people. And don't get me wrong, I'd love for my kids to come over and for me to hug them again. But I still get to see them. We still do nail parties. And girly stuff through Zoom. We watch movies together, and we still talk a lot. But I really have been able to meet more people because they're more readily available, and the Zoom doesn't affect them much. And it's not just Zoom. I mean, I got a duo call the other day, and I didn't recognize the phone number, and I thought, I wasn't even going to answer it, and I answered it. It was my father, 75 years old, calling me with a video call on Duo. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Not too bad at all. I do miss the travel, especially since last year I went to Egypt, and I do look forward to that again, but probably not until 2022.
Well, that was my next question is when you can do a getaway experience, what will it look like for you? What will that getaway experience look like for you?
Well, I will be talking to you because I will probably be doing a retreat in Italy.
In Italy. Okay. So that was where you'd like to. Okay, wonderful. So if someone told you at this time in your life that you had to delete all apps on your cell phone but could only keep 2 apps, what are your must-to apps? Must have.
Ooh. YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And probably one of my games.
Words with Friends. You can play Words with Friends.
Because that's part of my meditative process. Being able to keep that brain part busy, and yet I know that I'm relaxing everything else. So.
Well, then you must join me every Wednesday night, which I'll share at the end of the show. Last night on our Wednesday night connection tribe, we did game night, and it was so much fun. We did the 2 truths and 1 lie game, and then a fun fact. So it was really fun. We all were laughing. So you would have really enjoyed last night's connection show. So with that, with your apps, so my last question to you is, what's one fun fact about you, Brenda?
I can write my name forwards and backwards at the same time. If I had a whiteboard behind me, I would show you.
Wow.
But I can write here. I'll do. There you go.
That's cool. That's awesome. Well, that's great. And what I'd love to do now is show the audience Brenda's bio. And so this will be up on the YouTube show, page as well, so that you'll be able to connect with her and reach out at her website. So that is her bio for you. And in closing, I'd love for the audience to know that the Connection Show that's sponsored by Braveheart Workshops always is looking for amazing leaders just like Brenda. So if you are a leader and you'd love to share your story with the audience, please go to braveheartworkshops with an S.com and go to the contact page and fill that out, and I'll reach out to you so that we can schedule a time that meets for both of us. For the audience, you are so important to the Connection Show. So like I had just mentioned, we started doing Zoom connections. It's called the Zoom Connection Gathering Tribe. And we meet every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, and 5 Pacific Time. We meet for an hour and a half, and we have great connections with some really heavy topics, some educational topics, and also fun, laughter, and play. So it's a great opportunity during this time, especially to meet some new friends around the globe. And so we'd love for you to join us. The wonderful part is there's several leaders just like Brenda who show up on when they're available on Wednesday nights. So if you've enjoyed Brenda and if she has a chance to ever connect on the show, you may be able to get to know her more on a personal level. So with that, we hope that you'll join us on the Connection Show. And Brenda, if you can jump on Wednesday night, we'd love to see your smiling face. And I have to say to you, you have the most amazing sparkling eyes I've ever seen. They just sparkle.
Thank you.
Yes. So with that, thank you so much, Brenda, for joining us. And thank you so much, audience, for joining in on the Connection Show. Have a wonderful day. Bye now. Thanks for joining us on the Connection Show. Let's connect now. We can dream together to renew, restore, and reconnect with wellness in our life and community. To enhance connection, join us in the Zoom Connection Gathering Tribe on Wednesday evenings. The Zoom Connection Gathering Tribe is an easy and practical way for everyone to meet up, gather, and feel welcomed and accepted. To join us, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Then click on the podcast tab and the Zoom Connection Tribe tab. On that page, go to the Facebook page called the Connection Show Gathering Tribe and register to join our Facebook group. We post secure passwords each week in the group so you can log in safely. We meet on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Mountain, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for 1.5 hours with great topics, laughter, and connection. See you on Wednesday evenings. Thanks for joining us and have a great day.